Hey, WokeNFree Nation, Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice.
For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling, start listening.
You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science to Bitcoin, or even one of your favorite celebrities. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud.
And they have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. Our podcast, WokeNFree, is there too.
Now let's get into the episode. Hi, it's Natasha.
And Khalil.
And we are the co-hosts of
WokeNFree.
Thank you for tuning in to our 319th episode of WokeNFree. If you've been tuning in every week for WokeNFree Wednesday, you know that WokeNFree is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything important to us, you, the world, and nothing is off the table. This week, we're asking a really interesting question, which is, what makes someone a bad person? Ooh. Lots to be discussed there. But before we dive deep into the subject, a couple of things to cover. First, have you gone to WokeNFree.com not only to listen to this episode, but to download it through the Podbean app? If not, please do that immediately. We greatly appreciate it. That is how you're able to put your comments in each and every week, and you can tell us, what do you think makes a bad person? Would you define yourself as a bad person, good person, somewhere in between? There's so much to discuss, so please make sure you do that. Now, if you listen to podcasts on a device where you can't get another app like the Podbean app, a couple of tears are shed, but fret not, you still can support the show. Go to WokeNFree.com, go in the Listen tab, and then pick your platform of choice where you'll follow and subscribe to WokeNFree. So you'll find the show on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. It's a WokeNFree world where most podcasts are consumed. You will find the show. Also, on WokeNFree.com through the Podbean app, you can click to subscribe to follow the show. And on social, you'll always find something interesting and fascinating on our platform. So you'll find our show socials on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And then if you have like 90 seconds, which is more of a statement, less of a question, we'd love for you to review the show. Really tell us how the show's feeding into your life. We've gotten some wonderful reviews on platforms, various platforms that we're on. So we really greatly appreciate the love and support, and we want to keep it going. So make sure you do that and share this with your friends and family in your network. Again, how do you review the show? Go to WokeNFree.com, go on the Listen tab, and then pick your platform of choice where you'll give us your 5-star reviews. Thank you, and not goodbye, but more to come.
All right. That's the way to change it up.
Yes.
And before starting the conversation, how about we share a little bit about ourselves?
Enjoy.
This week, we are asking, would you rather have cornbread or garlic bread?
Pointless. Cornbread. Cornbread all the way. I love anything sweet and yummy. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Now, the thing I think about is, do I want something like sweet and savory, or do I want something just savory and kind of has a little bit of salt? So the garlic bread, I'm going to have to go with that, just because that's a good way to start the meal. Like to prepare you for your meal.
That's interesting.
It's a good appetizer. Like the cornbread, I think I like to have that with my meal, but if I just want to start myself off, I have the garlic bread just to get me ready for the real.
Get ready with the stinky breath. I like it. Let's go.
It's
Mine
one
will
way.
smell sweet, but yours will be a little bit different.
The breath may be stinky, but at least it's not bad, right?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes. And apparently, I've learned the more garlic that you consume, actually, it helps detract mosquito bites. So you also will be.
Oh, so you can get rid of them like a dragon.
Yeah, so I have to walk around like a stinky vampire.
That's
and
good.
I'll be straight.
Again, a stinky vampire, but not a bad vampire.
Hey, there we go. That's the sloppy transition. I like it. Let's go. Let's see this through.
There's nothing sloppy about it, but there might be something bad coming up. Right? And
there we go.
And because of that, we might have to ask, what makes someone a bad person?
Might have to ask, exactly.
Yeah, we might have to.
Okay, so I would say you could define a bad person in a couple of ways, or a couple of reasons that can pull into why such a person could exist. But I would want to preface it with the idea that, like, this is what I think, but it is not anything factual in nature, right? Like, this is a subjective thought. So a bad person is maybe someone who is making poor choices based on either like moral deficiency or ethical issues. This also could be a person who has behavioral challenges that cause harm to other people. That could constitute as a bad person. And then a couple of things also, like if a person has harmful intent, is literally going out in the world trying to cause harm or suffering to others, that could constitute as a bad person, right? Or consistent enough bad behavior that makes that a bad person. A person who lacks empathy and is unable to understand or share the feelings of others, that would be behaviorally challenging to deal with on an ongoing basis. So maybe that person could be a bad person. Someone who's dishonest, continuously lying, being deceitful, and then that deceitful behavior is then consistently hurting others, bad. Selfishness, right? If you're excessively self-centered and narcissistic in nature, that is going to have repercussions with others in a negative way. So bad. Someone who's cruel, someone who actively engages in cruel acts against other humans or animals alike. I want to be specific about that because there's a lot of bad stuff that people do to animals, and people like sometimes I find will like shove it under the rug, like, oh, it's just a cat or a dog. And it's like, no. If you're harming humans or animals, that is not acceptable, and that could make that person a bad person. Yeah. And then also unethical behavior, someone who's violating societal norms or ethical principles. And yes, we all come from different walks of life, but there's certain,
can be funny. Right.
Exactly. It can be hard because we come from different walks of life, but there are certain norms that we agree to. And if someone is constantly violating those, then that, like stealing and being fraudulent or cheating, that can make someone a bad person. Lack of accountability, someone who refuses to own up for their own actions, constantly blaming others for their own mistakes, or even worse, which is someone who's intolerant, prejudiced, someone who actively hates others, discriminates against others. And then lastly, I would say someone who's betraying the trust of another person or acting in criminal behavior without any remorse and or intention of changing. I think those are all factors that go into making a bad person.
That's interesting. The criminal behavior, you gotta be careful because crimes, again, are different depending on what society you're in. And it could be a thing where
that's a good call.
You're not really bad. I mean,
but for current
the law is bad. That's
the
real bad thing. But I think all the things you mentioned, I guess you were saying that it could make the person a bad person, not necessarily that they are a bad person because they exhibit any of them, the traits separately.
Exactly. So exactly. So it's kind of like what I would constitute bad is not going to be one and done, as you should appreciate. It would be someone who's going to be consistent in any of the things I mentioned and has no remorse and or has not taken any action to rectify their behavior, right? So maybe you do a bad action once and then you change it up. But if you're consistently doing any of the things I mentioned, then you just want to wear that scarlet letter B and you just want to be out here being big and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I think of a bad person, I think of 6 traits. And depending on the trait, I can decide if you're a bad person or not. Like I can cast the judgment from high above. So the first one is that if you lie for personal gain. Now this one, I would say you have to do this.
Yeah.
If you do it consistently, I think that's the problem.
Not one and done.
If you could do this once and you're not necessarily a bad person, but if you do this, every day, then you're a bad person. That's according to me though. And the second one is that if you wish physical harm on others. So again,
just wish or enact?
No, just wishing it.
Oh, wow.
So when I say wishing it, that might be saying it to others. Like I wish so-and-so would whatever have something. Cause remember, I'm thinking of this in terms of The Secret. Like you're trying to influence,
law of attraction.
something to happen. Okay. Like a negative action on people. And I think that's just
so
bad.
When people say, I wish this person would die or have a car accident, you think that is a bad action?
Yeah, it's a bad action, which could lead you to be a bad person.
Okay.
Now, if you're always doing this in your mind, I mean, I still think you can be a bad person.
It's in my mind.
Yeah, like still, just because it's in your mind doesn't mean you're not a bad person.
That's a good one to call out to people. Just because you're not articulating it to others doesn't mean it's not. Okay.
Yeah, because I think it can make its way into your life at hand. Actually, just you wishing it. The third thing is if you sabotage others so they can't achieve better than what you're doing. So it's kind of like if you fail a test and you decide that you're going to pull the fire alarm or something. You do something something
and
like that.
hurt others. Okay.
Yeah, and then
Gotcha.
just you're going to cause like a whole issue
for
just
other
because
people.
you know that you can't pass this test. Like doing that is it's not good. That's just an example. There's other ways you can sabotage
Of
people,
course.
but that's an example. The fourth thing is that if you take actions to destabilize society for the fun of it.
Interesting.
So that'd be something like if you have two sides that are conflicting with each other, and you egg each one of them on, so eventually they get into a fight, and it could be a physical fight, verbal, or anything. It could be like at a football game, even like you don't care who wins, but you talk to each of the fans and you say, "Hey,"
try to create chaos.
Yeah, you try to get chaos at the end where they go into the parking lot and there's a big brawl.
So thinking through Joker in Dark Knight, you're thinking
similar to that. Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
Similar, a mastermind behind the scenes.
Who's going to blow up whom? Yes, excellent.
Yeah, so that's one that's definitely
phenomenal.
And this one, I think if you do this, I mean, you could do this twice, and I think you're a bad person. Like this is this is what is that one's more extreme.
Well, yeah, that's
to me.
a very extreme action.
Yeah, like you're going out of your way to make sure people
create chaos.
Yeah, they're going to be hurt in the end. So the fifth thing is that someone who purports to be perfect.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, like if you do that and you continuously do it, you're a bad person. It's this is
what
automatic.
If you're just singing
I know
a
that.
song though?
That's fun. That's just art, right?
Okay.
Art is different.
Okay.
Art is art. So that's separate from being bad.
Okay.
But if you're literally just telling people you're perfect and you're 100%, you always get it right. People never see the truth of the things that you've done.
And why does that make someone a bad person?
Because it's kind of like they don't really. I think they're doing it for other reasons.
Clearly.
Yeah, they're delusional, but I think they're doing it for other reasons, for manipulative reasons.
Oh, okay.
They're trying to make people think they're better than who they are. And I know it's funny. I'm saying this one it points to the fact that they probably are a bad person because good people don't do this. That's what I'm saying. If you're a good person, you don't do that.
You don't like, I'm so perfect.
Yeah, you don't
so
be like,
right.
I'm the best. I never make mistakes. If you're doing that, then you're most likely a bad person. It's like bad.
Interesting.
This is a trait that a bad person does. Like it's it's like a red flag.
Okay.
Like the other ones I don't call them red flags, but this is like a flag.
Interesting one you've shared. Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, to me this is a flag. Huh. If someone does that to enough of you should know. It gives themselves away.
Good people don't do that. They don't go around like me.
And I'm perfect. I never mess up.
That's true.
I didn't make a mistake.
Don't do that. Yeah,
like then
true.
You're a bad person. Really, you actually are just a bad person. It's not even like you do bad acts. It's an indicator.
Big on bad, you know?
Yeah, you don't do that if you're a good person.
Okay.
And the last thing I consider this: you do this once, you're a bad person, and that's someone who imprisons or enslaves others.
So really,
you only get once.
All guns blazing here on this.
Yeah,
one.
that's if you've done that once, you're a bad person. That's it. You can always come back from being bad,
if you're
but
the
you're
descendant
bad.
of someone who's done this,
No,
you
it
are
doesn't
not a
mean
bad
that. No,
person.
because you didn't control your. No, you didn't control your.
But if you were actively imprisoning or enslaving others, mentally, physically, or spiritually, let's put that out there for people. Because sometimes people mentally trap people, and they do that mental abuse and stuff.
But you got that. There's a nuance to that though, so that's harder to.
Yeah,
But
definitely the physical imprisonment.
Physical, we know for sure you're a bad person.
Unacceptable.
Mental,
so anyone
we have to
who
figure it
does
out.
the sex trade industry, right?
Anybody traps people in their basements.
Yeah,
because people do that and they lock them to a chain and they bring them water and food.
And there's films
any of that kind of
too.
stuff.
Really,
like that's still happening
horrifying.
to this day. So you're a bad person. Like that's automatic.
Okay.
Are there any other factors or circumstances that increase the chance of somebody being a bad person or making bad choices?
I think so. And so I was, when thinking through this, I found this article on Inc.com. It's titled 14 Psychological Forces That Make Good People Do Bad Things. And Dr. Travis Bradbury shares what those 14 things are. I'm not sure if we'll hit all of them, but just to hit a couple would be interesting. So the compensation effect, that refers to the tendency for people to assume they accumulate moral capital, and then we use good deeds to balance out bad deeds. Or alternatively, we give ourselves break from goodness, like a piece of chocolate after a week of salads. That's awesome. And this makes good people are more inclined to do bad things under the guise of, I'm a good person. It's just this one thing type of thing. And so that's kind of like you're doing the check and balance, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
I think if most of us think on that, probably could at some point agree that we did something like you always buy your things and then one time you, I guess shoplift, for instance, and you're like, well, it's not so bad because I'm always buying denying that, right? Like a bad deed is a bad deed, right? We can't excuse that. And then another example that is shared is the broken window theory. That theory argues that chaos and disorder in an organization makes people believe they work for an ineffectual authority. In response, they are more likely to commit unethical behavior that's in line with their perceived chaos. So an example of this was when Mayor Rudy Giuliani lowered major crime rates in New York City in the 1980s by cracking down on petty crime. Living in a city that was less riddled with crime, the New Yorkers came to believe in the organization running their city, which slowed the rate of major crimes. Interesting.
I don't get it. What? So the New Yorkers there, they believe that the organizations ran their city, and that slowed the rate of crimes, or not just cracking down on crime?
So essentially,
or is it saying that?
No. So because Rudy Giuliani was, I think he was like more tyrant in behavior in his like how do you say that word, like being very harsh around cracking down on
just
crime,
on small crime,
even if it wasn't like even if the sentence didn't match the crime kind of situation, because he wanted people to think wanted to change the perception and how people felt safe in New York.
Any crime.
But then some of that harsh sentencing may have not been appropriate, right? But then people said, well, we have less crime, so we'll just buy into this thing, kind of like when they were doing in New York. I'm not sure if they're still doing it. Remember they were, what was that? They were stopping people and they were
stop and frisk.
Yeah, and they were doing that more excessively on black and brown people. And it was just like under this guise of like, well, like we have to protect our city, but it's like, but that doesn't mean you should further discriminate against people of color in the space. But maybe, I don't know, maybe you disagree. Maybe it's not the fullest clear, but that's how I'm interpreting that.
Okay.
Share.
That's interesting.
Another one is tunnel vision. There's nothing wrong with setting goals and driving hard to achieve them, but this only becomes a problem when people are possessed by a singular focus on a particular goal to the point that they leave other important considerations such as compassion and ethics out of their thinking. So for folks who want to really achieve something, but if your achievement is at the detriment of others, that's not okay. Yeah. Right? We can't leave people behind just to accomplish this goal. And I think we've seen that in history numerous of occasions. And then another reason could be the pressure to conform. The pressure to conform is powerful. When a group engages in unethical behavior, individuals are far more likely to participate in or condone that behavior than risk standing out. So a good example, but it's really tragic. So this is triggering for anyone listening right now. 13 Reasons Why, a show on Netflix, again, triggering. There was a scene where a high school student was sodomized in the most cruel and unusual manner, and there was a group of students that were not participating in the act, but they were in the space, if you remember that scene, right? And this to me is triggering to that, because the pressure to conform, like the other kids there, the other boys there could have stopped the main boy who was performing that horrific act, but they didn't, right? Out of the fear of either not wanting to be scrutinized or challenge that person, but just kind of like, to me, and you've seen that, like people will do, like groups of people will do horrible things, and there's one leader and no one else stops. And to
I think it was like,
yeah,
they were on the football team and that was like the captain or something.
I forget what, there was he was an athlete and he was prominent in the school.
But the other boys that were there, they were also athletes as well. Yeah, and he was like the leader of their group, basically.
Exactly. So but it's still, just because you're leader of your community or group is doing something unethical or deeply troubling and illegal and humanistically deplorable doesn't mean you should not stand up for the person being harmed or yourself. Like, you have to always stand up. We have to get comfortable with not conforming. And it's okay to say no, and it's also okay to help people, and stand for what's right. And then, and again, that's a very triggering show. It's a very triggering scene. So only watch it if you're in a good mind space to be able to do it. And then another one is the blinding effect of power. People in power typically see themselves as inherently different from their employees. This can lead them to set ethical boundaries for their employees that are more stringent than the ones they set for themselves. And
so we're talking about the leadership.
Yeah, so people saying, well, like, these are rules for them versus these are rules for us.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very interesting call out because, definitely.
You see that.
founders or leaders in organizations are not going to see rules equally for each other. So again, the article speaks to 14 different reasons. Definitely make sure you check out all of our links at WokeNFree.com for the episode. But what are some things you wanted to share as to why you think, like, what increases the chance that a good person's going to be bad or make bad decisions?
Well, I asked myself a couple of questions. As the first thing is, who do they hang out with? Are they hanging out with people that generally get up to no good? That's going to influence if they make bad choices. If they're always hanging around with saints, they're going to be pretty peaceful, is what I think. The next thing I asked is, who raised them? Like, were they raised by a group of people that...
Or wolves?
Well, wolves would be good if they were raised by that.
Wolves would do us right, actually.
Yeah, they know to just...
Beautiful animals.
They know you're just doing stuff to eat, right? You're making sure that you're not going to destroy society.
Yep.
And the next thing is, what were their life experiences? So if a lot of bad things happen to you, trauma. I can see you just turning around and doing the same to others, right? Yeah. And then the last thing I'd say, what were they taught? And that's just in terms of even schooling. Like, are you taught that?
Oh, interesting.
Like, what kind of morals does school teach you? They might teach you that certain things are okay. They might teach you that there were actually...
That's a really interesting word. What morals is your school teaching?
Yeah, they do. They instill that, even though they might not say it outright. The books are definitely biased. The books are definitely biased.
Yeah. But there definitely isn't like a... points in the day when they're like,
no, it's not like this is a moral class. No, but there's little things. But I see what you're saying,
like through the knowledge share.
Through the information share, there's bias that leaks through. Okay. And then according to Psych Central, they just say there's some other factors to consider, and we kind of mentioned the hurt, and the next thing is fear, insecurity, inclusion in groups, so wanting to be included into a group, doing things just to get into that special group, right? That's another thing. Exclusion, not wanting to be excommunicated from a group. The next thing is guilt, can actually lead to people doing bad things, which, you can manipulate people with guilt. And the last thing they mentioned was shame, I guess. But, I mean, what's the difference between shame and guilt? I don't know, but...
Well, guilt is like you're feeling bad about something or bad not of doing something. Shame is like, so guilt is like the prelude to shame is how I interpret the difference. Okay. Like shame is like you've already done a bad deed or you've done something similar and you're like, versus guilt is like guilt can lead. And shame is like, I think the after. Okay. Guilt is the pre.
Yeah, that makes sense there. Do you think people are choosing to be a bad person?
That's a really interesting question. So on healthline.com, there was a reference to a 2018 research paper and website where 3 psychologists suggest that what they call the D, or the dark factor of personality that lies at the root of unethical or cruel behavior. So the D factor traits include narcissism and psychotherapy, along with sadism, spitefulness, self-interest, entitlement, moral disengagement, and egoism, all great parts of humanity. Joking, deeply
That's
joking.
Good to know.
And then all of those traits suggest that someone will pursue their own interests at the expense of others, which then speaks to, if you look at the root of what makes a bad person, I think it is that the person putting self before the interests of our society, of our community, of our family, of our partner. And so it's a challenging thing. And sometimes, and it's challenging because, we do believe that you do need to prioritize self, even at the risk of not necessarily always being there for others. But it seems like there's a line between self-preservation and self-care and self-prioritization to the point where then it's like harm of others due to your selfishness or your self-centered behavior.
And there's stuff that, like I mentioned, you can outright do that you never needed to do it, right?
That's true.
You didn't need to enslave anybody no matter what.
Well, that's never helpful.
That's why there's certain things that that
kidnapping
are done.
People, murdering people, that is not helpful for you or that person.
Well, see, I can't agree on those terms.
Oh, murder. Well, yes, I know.
Kidnapping and murder, there could be a reason. You're trying to get money. It's a selfish thing. Not that it's right. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there's a reasoning for it. You enslaving person, there's a reason for it, but it's not, there's no...
But, the thing about life is you can always argue either side of anything. And so someone can rationalize how those types of bad behaviors were needed or helpful, especially if you take it out of the context of a person.
They're definitely not needed.
Nations, right? Like nations make bad decisions.
And the nations will commit a lot of these crimes that we considered all wrong,
and it's for the greater good of society. Yeah. Does that make this a bad nation, right? Like it's such an
bad nation is a little different than bad person.
Right? Yeah, it's a different context there.
And a lot of the nations are labeled bad, actually, because of that.
It's people. It's people making decisions.
And it is people making decisions.
Lie with
funny.
the group of us or they don't, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, then, are you thinking that people choose to be bad or no?
I would say that there is a biological, mental, emotional, and kind of moral proposition that will lend someone to being good or bad. And I think most people are not comfortable with the ideology that they are choosing their life and they are choosing to be the person they are. I think people view life as it's happening to them as opposed to for them. So I think most people would perceive the decision to be bad as bad circumstances happened and they went with it, as opposed to what's really happening, which is choice. You are choosing to enslave. You are choosing to cheat someone. You are choosing to, like, it is a choice.
Okay, I see from your point of view. Yeah. It's funny because this question could be looked at two different ways. So I see the way you're looking at it as the person like, well, I'm not choosing to be bad. It's just certain things happened to me and it led me down to, they're kind of like explaining it away.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking of the choosing to be bad, I'm thinking of it like, it's kind of like in life, I want to be this person or I can be this person. So what I think is most people are choosing, they want to be a good person. Like no matter what, we're going to start.
We can take that assumption. Sure. Yeah, I don't know if that's an assumption.
Yeah, we're just going to say, let's just say it. It may be wrong, but most people want to be good, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And what happens is that I think that life happens and they start to make certain choices and they're like led along a path and they do stuff and they're like, well, I'm not actually bad. I just do a lot of things that kind of aren't on the up and up. But I don't think they're like, I don't think they're saying like, I don't think there's people that go around like, you know what? I aspire to be a bad person in life. Like, I don't think there's that people doing that. I don't think they're aspiring to be bad.
Mentally
they're just taking
well
action.
People, or,
yeah, of course. I can't speak on that.
Yeah.
This is all mental. I don't think there's people that go
If you are
like,
in control of your mental
today.
health, I would agree that most people shouldn't.
Because I can even
aren't necessarily waking up saying, I choose and I affirm being a bad person.
A great example, I'm not going to name a specific because it's cliche, but dictators will do it often, right? They'll be like, I'm doing this for the good of society,
so he
right?
didn't even view like the one I know who you're talking about, didn't view his actions as a bad person, but definitely is the definition of a bad person.
That's a good example.
Because it caused harm, excessive harm to
and
millions of other people.
I'll do one here we go because they don't get enough recognition.
Yeah.
King Leopold, he murdered all these people in the Congo for their rubber plant. Or that might not be the name of it, but it was for a plant that they could produce rubber with. He murdered millions upon millions of them, wiping down and killed the wildlife there too. But he did that. He was being
he chose to do that.
Yeah, he chose that. He knew what was happening, and he was like, "Who cares?" So
in his mind, did he say, "I'm going to be a bad person"?
No, but in his mind, he didn't think he was bad. He was like, "I'm helping my people. I'm making my nation a wealthy nation. I'm doing good stuff." I mean. Yes, people are dying.
And so that's what I'm saying. I think what's interesting,
but he's not choosing to be bad.
He's not choosing it in his mind. He's not perceiving it.
Yeah.
But is he in fact actually choosing to be a bad person? Yes, he is.
But
but he's not perceiving that.
His actions made him a bad person. But in his mind, he didn't aspire to be bad.
Exactly.
Is what I'm thinking of that aspiration.
About the aspiration versus the effect. And what's interesting as I get older in life, I'm realizing most people are delusional. Most people are delusional about what they think they are doing and what they're justifying in their mind, and then what is the impact for which is happening in their community and world. And a lot of people are not seeing themselves for what we are receiving them as. And so it's an interesting thing. Are you choosing to do this? Well, depends on the delusion of state of mind you are.
That's true.
So it's fascinating. All right. Well then, now let's hit it, give people what they need. What is your best advice for dealing with a bad person?
I think the key thing is that you have to actually point out their bad behavior. Don't just ignore it. If you ignore it, it's going to turn into a fireball of mess that can't be stopped. So please at least point it out and try to take care of it.
To the authorities or mental health professionals if needed. Yeah,
depending on what they're doing, that you see that they're bad. And in doing this, you want to try to have somebody that actually will support you. Like, not necessarily that they have to be there with you to confront the person, but that they at least know that you are confronting the person just in case, things go sour.
Anything goes wrong,
you want to make sure somebody knew that, you were dealing with somebody.
The demon ahead.
Yeah, just let them know. And if you can, and it makes sense, you can bring them along with you. It just depends on the situation.
If they feel comfortable with that.
It depends on the situation. And then whatever you tell them, the bad person, I think you just gotta be very clear that you're not being facetious. Like, this is a serious matter.
Oh, that you're holding them accountable for their
because they might just be like, oh, you're just joking. I mean, you don't really mean that.
Not
You're just
jokes and giggles.
Or you're just doing this because you're feeling, no, don't let them try to gaslight you.
Matter.
Make them know that this is the truth and this is what you're doing. You need to change.
That's why I say to people, I know I've been threatened. People have tried to say, I'm going to fight you. And I always say, well, please don't, because I will call the authorities immediately. I am not playing with you. Do not play with me. So that's why I do want to reiterate, if you need to invoke professional help and or the authorities in these scenarios, especially with people who are making bad decisions that is either harming human life or animals alike, make people be known they will be held accountable, and you are not afraid to dial 911 in the United States. What I would add to that, I think those are really good points of help for people, is to also set boundaries, because a lot of times what folks, again, don't want to admit to themselves is a lot of us have bad people in our families and we have bad people in our networks. And sometimes we tolerate toxicity. You and I both would agree. We knowingly tolerate bad people in our world, and that's okay. But then you have to set boundaries. You cannot expose yourself unnecessarily to harm or stress or undue mental disturbance due to these bad people. So tolerate the toxicity for what you're capable of tolerating. Please also stay calm. A lot of times when dealing with difficult people, we start getting amped. Our blood pressure is rising. Listen, you want to live a long life. Let's take it down a notch, and let's try to remain calm and composed and not act off of emotion and escalate things. Let's try to deal with what's factually happening, what you are in disagreement with, and get to a space of resolve. How are we going to solve this situation?
Hopefully you can do that.
Yes, hopefully you can. Try also not to make sure that if someone is doing this, if your life, like you mentioned, if you're feeling threatened in a situation, that maybe it's not safe for you to confront this person. Maybe you need to utilize other resources to be able to confront the situation. So please don't forget to ask for help and try to focus on communicating effectively. Because you mentioned it before, people will try to gaslight you and they'll be like, no, it's not so bad, or I'm not doing this. And they deserve, like, people try to convince you and rationalize their bad behavior. The more that you can focus objectively on what is wrong and why this is a situation that is unethical, immoral, wrong, criminal in nature, whatever, you address it appropriately. And then documentation is everything. We live in a litigious world, and so if you identify bad behavior, it is important to document, and that way you have it for yourself. Whether you submit it elsewhere, you have it for yourself, and it is what it is.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
And then also consider also professional help, not just for that person potentially, but for yourself if you need.
Wow.
Well, so we go through.
This trauma. How you deal with a bad person is you get professional help for yourself.
Don't say it like that. Come on, come on. What I'm saying is people are traumatized.
And they're dealing with that bad person really well, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, trauma manifests in all situations.
Talking to their therapist.
And we want to make sure that if you need emotional support for yourself, that you seek that out. Because for those of us who do get stressed out, it creates undue illness, mental, physical, spiritual illness for ourselves. So make sure that even at the end of the resolve that you've gotten, that if you needed to speak, that's why PTSD exists, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, whatever. So, making sure you're dealing with that. And then self-care is important to help manage stress and emotional toll that happens. And then also making sure that when you are thinking through, how do I deal with this bad person, their bad behavior, go through and evaluate all your options. A lot of times people think too binary, like I can only do this or that. You might have more than two options in life. Try to be objectively thinking through what are the different options, and then decide what is the option that you feel most comfortable with. But again, not anchored in emotional response, but in the facts for which you are dealing with. Take a deep breath. Sometimes you need a couple of days to process things, and then go forth. But those are my tips.
Okay. Those are definitely good ones. Here we go. You know what it is. It is scenario time. Scenario 1. Letitia went to all the stores within a 15-mile radius of her home to purchase all the toilet paper in stock at those stores. Does this make Letitia a bad person?
COVID remnants? COVID on the mind?
It's a good question because people thought certain things about those people during that COVID time.
Oh, goodness.
It's a good scenario.
Well, let's think through what are the things we discussed. So a person who intends the harm of others or is making action that is going to cause the harm of others and they knowingly take that action, then that could constitute as a bad act. And if that person is consistently doing that, that lends to a track record. So thus could be a bad person. So if Letitia is going to stores within a 15-mile radius on numerous of occasions to stock up on toilet paper to the detriment of other homes being able to properly get rid of their waste.
Oh, I was going to say unsoil themselves.
Okay, there. That would constitute as bad actions on an ongoing basis, and yes, a bad person. But I understand why someone would do this when people are threatened, like a pandemic. People overreact and over-respond to from a space of deficiency and lack, and that would drive that type of behavior. So it's understandable why someone does this, but it is inexcusable if it's done more than once. If it's done on numerous occasions, that is unacceptable and that is bad.
So here's the thing with that too, just to add a wrench into it. Mm-hmm. Let's say she did it once, but she only did it because she knew she could sell it at a higher price.
Oh, now you're talking. Now you're making profit off your bad act.
Yeah.
Nope. Then that constitutes now you're getting into the space of bad person. So real you would quick call it, yeah. Because it's one thing to do it to stock up because you're nervous and you want to make sure you use the bathroom how you want to use the bathroom each and every time. But now if you're doing it and now you're trying to make money off of other people's misfortune, that's unacceptable.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I see this situation. I already know the person's a bad person. Like that, They already had this on the mind. They were trying to take all the toilet paper within their area. Yeah. That's not right. That's definitely wrong.
People have to be able to use the bathroom.
Yeah, like, and it's a kind of messed up thing to do too. Yeah, because some people really want their toilet paper.
Yeah, that's not it. What are you saying?
Yeah, they want to be clean, right?
Yeah, so let people be able to use the bathroom.
Now, just to see, would you label somebody bad if they did a similar thing with PS5s?
Oh yeah.
So it's even though that's not like it's even not close to necessity.
But the problem is, it's again, you're harming others for your personal gain. We've now escalated things to another level. And it's one thing if you wanted to do it because you had a hotel and you wanted a PS5 for every room or something, fine. But now you're doing it because you're like, ooh, I can make $200 per PS5 because no one else wants it, so I'm going to drive demand up. That's inexcusable, and now you're a bad person.
Yeah.
Are you redeemable? Yes, but you're a bad person.
I think a lot of people would agree with you because they were mad at those scalpers.
That's not, it's not appropriate.
Was some bad feelings towards them. Scenario 2. Haide is a politician who was very successful in her personal life. She amassed a huge following on every social media platform where her followers support her vocally wherever they go. She recently lost her second run for office and claimed that the elections were plagued by fraud. She then told her supporters to fight like hell and never give up for her rightful win. Do you think her abuse of power makes her a bad person?
Remnants of someone who's orange. Nice. Nice reference. I joke. I kid.
I don't know what you could I don't know what you could mean. This is a very unique scenario.
I bet it is.
This could no way happen in real life.
Okay.
I could not see that.
The insurgent? Okay. Okay. So the language fight like hell and never give up is not in and of itself a command or a directive to say charge buildings or to fight and assault those in power or those in governmental system. Those are phrases that are igniting passion, but it is not an instruction for violence or pain and or specific instructions to do something unlawful or criminal in nature. So however, I don't approve of people in leadership saying things like that to their communities because you don't know how people are going to interpret that phrase. Someone could interpret that as light the buildings on fire. It depends on everyone's interpretation and mental health status. There's a lot going on there. So overall, do I think the abuse of her power makes her a bad person? This is a one-time act. She probably spoke under emotional duress due to the fact that she probably thought she was going to win and didn't. If she continued to urge her community to be more and more violent or more and more aggressive to those in power, then I would say she was then floating in the space of bad person. But that in of itself, I think I would need more. Otherwise, I wouldn't label her as a bad person there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, actually. Just the one-time action of speaking to your supporters, like, it's understandable when you lose, you're upset, and you're going to be, you're going to try to say, hey, this is not right, and you're going to be all in your emotions, but... you should cool down a couple months from now, at least, right? There shouldn't be a year goes by and you still are saying similar stuff like this. Then I'm saying, hey, you're creeping there, and you're telling your supporters to do stuff. It's not right. And then if you do some other actions along with this, that's where you can really tiptoe into being a bad person. So, just on its own, though, I don't think it's enough to be a bad person.
And I would just also add that, again, when we go through situations in life, we do have emotional responses, and that's why it's important to sometimes be quiet and sometimes step away from social media. Or sometimes if we do have to make a comment, some people are in positions in their life where the news or press are like, what's your response? What's your response? Always go to a space of gratitude. Thank you for asking for my opinion. As of right now, I'm still processing everything that happened, but I'm grateful for everyone who supported me at this time. And I plan to share upcoming plans in the upcoming weeks, right? And just take a step back and just always lean into gratitude. You can't get in trouble when you say thank you. But you get in trouble when you jump off of what you want to say based on how you feel. That's where we can lead into some really bad territory. So that's a tip for those running for office. Lean into gratitude, y'all.
Scenario 3. Hopper recently lost his job at a tech startup that ran out of initial funding. They cut 40% of the staff just to keep the lights on. He thought that he was instrumental in building the company to where it was and wanted to stick around forever. Hopper decided to get even with them by using a backdoor he had in the internal system to plant a ransomware virus. Do you think Hopper is a bad person?
Yes. Because there's a lot of points where this lends to very intentional, harmful behavior. So yes, it is very upsetting when we think we have employment and we no longer have it. It is very upsetting when you lose employment with an organization that you feel personally and professionally committed to, especially if you've been there a long time and you've kind of seen the company go through the evolution. You feel more connected to that type of org. However, when you then go down the line of, I will get them back, or how dare they let me show you, and you utilize information or systematic advantages that you developed while there to then harm the organization. Intentional, bad, shame on you, Hopper. No, you're a bad person.
Yeah, see, the issue with this was like preconceived. It was kind of like he always had this trump card in his pocket. If anything happens to me, I have this back door. I thought it would make sense. That's the best way to put it.
There we go.
That's how the cookie crumbled, though. I didn't create that
each and
cookie.
every time.
Yeah. See, just think about it. The first wrong, he had the back door.
True.
Second wrong, he put this virus. The third wrong is using ransomware specifically, because what that does is that means all their files are inaccessible. But you'll give them the files back if they give you some cryptocurrency, basically. That's how these ransomwares usually work. You give us a certain amount of cryptocurrency, or you give us like these gift cards so they're untraceable.
Shameful.
And once you give us that, then we'll unlock all your files.
No.
So he put that to his old company. No. That's not right. They ran out of money, and this is what. And now you're trying to get more money out of them?
It wasn't like they fired everyone to just pay the leadership like 100,000 more. Like, that's not appropriate.
He really messed up here.
And it's like, how much did you really love the org if you had that in your back pocket, right?
Yeah, like he always knew. He said, just in case.
Yeah, you always said, I'm going to look out for self at the detriment of others. Ding, 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 ding. You are a bad person. Yeah. Somebody needs to pray for you. You need to pray for yourself and right this wrong that you've done.
Yep, I agree.
Well, with that, this was a tantalizing conversation, and hopefully you're thinking for yourself right now, and you're saying, where do you lie? And, you can share that publicly if you're brave. But nonetheless, I think what is a reality is every good person has done one bad act, but it is a difference between making one bad decision and being a bad person. And I think that this episode was enlightening on sharing that distinction there. But We could talk forever. We can't because we're at that time again. It's coming to the end of our 319th episode of
WokeNFree.
You're disturbing. And so
that was the supervillain saying that.
Oh, okay.
That's how they sound when they're the super bad person.
Okay, try Joker next time.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to Heath Ledger. We will always miss you, sir. This was quite the episode discussing what makes someone a bad person. What do folks need to do now, Khalil?
Come back next week for the new WokeNFree Wednesday episode. Make sure you follow us on social media to follow in the conversation, and make sure you tune in next week for WokeNFree Wednesday to join the conversation at WokeNFree.com.
If you're interested in submitting a topic for an upcoming episode, because this was so tantalizing, you can't wait for more, we'd love to hear from you on our Contact Us page, not Natasha Nurse's LinkedIn inbox.
Ouch.
At WokeNFree.com. So WokeNFree.com. And I'm serious, y'all. So also, if you, again, would like to engage with us on social media, we would love your support and continued conversation there. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And all sponsorship or collaboration queries, best place to get to us is at our Contact Us page at WokeNFree.com.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do share the episode and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for WokeNFree Wednesdays. Remember, WokeNFree is more than a podcast. It is a way of life. Till next time.
Make good choices.